1 week before getting married, my fiancée spent a large cash purchasing rights to a book all she wanted to honor their first romance since her ex-boyfriend penned it. When reporters asked me about it, I just smiled somewhat, coming back to your first love and reuniting like that not very often. Something that occurs daily, and honestly hope they discover their joyful ending that evening during the interview, was my fiancé, who had been somewhat detached for the preceding 6 months, did something wild and contacted me, urged me to stop talking trash, and even threatened to call off our wedding until I straightened things up with the press. But what she didn't comprehend was I was not feeling the marital vibes either when Mia lavished money to protect Jake's rights. I discovered his book Asterisk while recruiting the best PR team to hype him up. It was nothing revolutionary. Moments like Against Asterisk gave it a read-through. After watching it, it was my only interpretation. It's just another classic teen first love story set in a school with plenty of books like this, and many are far better written. But just because Jake wrote about his history with Mia didn't. With less than a week before our wedding, cruel Mia was cool with overshadowing me to increase his fame. But her assistant responded, looking as though my calls were being diverted. "Bro, Mia is at a conference. Right now, try phoning back in 2 hours." The assistant's tone was cold after all. Lucy's calendar is crammed every single day. She seemed to be taunting me as I washed up. Actor had nothing better to do for past 2 years. This assistant, who usually stayed by Mia, seemed to notice. She didn't regard me with the same respect anymore, the widening divide between us. After hanging up my manager, Sarah, I grinned slightly. She seemed concerned about the media shutting down all the exits. "Looks like you had to do an interview." "Daniel, what did Broloss say? I didn't even get through to her." "What can I say?" I stayed cool and got up to speak. Sarah was shocked right away and connected with what I meant. "Wait, but wouldn't I take advantage of this opportunity for some free PR as a washed-up actor?" I had phoned Mia to find out how to manage the media circus directed at me, but I pushed open the door since she assigned her aide to handle me there, and neither of us needed to save face. This left reporters swarming me with immediately pushed in-face microphones. Eyes ravenous for rumors, they saw Jake and Mia get on a plane to Greece this morning. "What are your ideas?" "Daniel, your wedding to Mia is next week. Her trip with another man messed things up, so Mia's assistant said she missed a meeting. She is on vacation with Jake abroad, some are claiming. Actually, that asterisk moment, like Against Asterisk, relates to Jake and Mia's true flashes, then flashed off everywhere, catching every flutter. Of my expression, I grinned professionally and talked clearly for everyone to hear. Really, whatever that is theorized about is accurate. I think of reconnecting with your first love is uncommon. Thus, I wish them all the best. As expected, that interview went off course in the Mia-Jake, and I were trending in real time in entertainment news. Social media went crazy with hypotheses delving into every detail about the three of us. Jake's supporters followed after me, calling me a washed-up actor, claiming I was riding his coattails and destroying their preferred author. But my fans fired. Most folks just adored Mia as a cheater and Jake as a homewrecker. Back labeling. Some laughed at me for being a sucker, while others claimed I was a gold digger subsisting on Mia's money and earned the fallout. But most of the comments were in my direction, disparaging me. But after all Mia and I had been through, nobody really defended Jake for snatching someone's fiancée. Together, as long as Jake has been in the scene, the more he talks, his fan base cannot match the wider public. More people insulted him, causing his supporters to remain silent. Some rumor sites even revealed, because Jake shared our area, public opinion against him grew even more negative. People started saying the I was quite startled instead of the lover next door. Neighbors. Living close, Jake explained a lot. I had woken up late several times to find, When I called Mia missing from bed, she claimed she couldn't sleep and was walking about the garden, turns out. Her walks brought her to Jake's place. I paused to check in with myself. Emotionally speaking, it was sort of humorous. I didn't give a damn about what MIA did anymore. Mia's assistant continued calling and texting me, but I didn't even read them. I blocked her. It was funny why. She did something sooner than I would have given her, but she didn't take it that night. Mia, still overseas, must have realized the anarchy back home. She eventually contacted me the first time. She had reached out in 6 months. It's kind of weird when, though everyone knew we had been together for 10 years, you consider less than a week before our wedding, and in the conclusion she left me in this difficult position and fled to Santorini with her first love, intrigued. Mia would explain all this instead of beginning to accuse you. Out of your mind, what sort of garbage were you feeding the media I worked so hard to establish now? You have destroyed everything, Daniel. I invited Jake to Santorini to assist with the wedding. He is a good friend. Planning. Mia's voice was full of frustration. What's real or not, just follow the claim and manage the PR. So, it wasn't real. After all the tale about Jake helping with, I couldn't go along with it. The wedding she only wanted was an excuse to bring him along. Mia rejected flatly. Expect me to say no. She went silent for almost half a minute before erupting in wrath. What do you mean you can't? Mess things out by speaking gibberish. Remember where our wedding was held? Her voice became silent. I should correct it. Stayed cool and carried on the invites. The site is clear already. You engaged a local wedding planner, and the location, a hotel here in the nation, you believed the media would not find interesting. Came out of Santorini, I remembered, when we were still in love. She stated we had to have. She wanted everyone to see our love in that romantic location during our wedding on Santorini. But as we began planned, she was far off, always busy stating the corporation had a major offer. Then, there is no time for an international wedding. A nice hotel here would easily cover it. We had been together so long, there was no need for a grand celebration here, but here she was taking another man to the very location we used to dream of for our wedding. Furious and ashamed, Mia screamed, "I don't care about any of that. Just fix this mess. I want no negative press on Jake when we return. Otherwise, there's no need for us to get married with that." She hung up. I threw my phone down and returned to packing, thinking threatening to call off the wedding would get her away. What would you do in this situation? Let me know in the comments. Suitcase. What a farce Mia I had been with had me not wanting to wed you either. Our partnership was usually consistent for 10 solid years. Then last year, when things started to move backwards, I knew Jake was Mia's first love back then, but it seemed strange that Mia, always so busy with work. Suddenly, she had time to read novels. She claimed she was seeking tales to purchase early before they exploded, so she could make them into movies or TV shows later. So I avoided Push Beyond. But half a year ago, Mia abruptly paid millions to get the rights to under 300,000 words. She teamed up with the website hosting the book to one of their best writers. Author Jake should take center stage. Book signings, PR teams, and all sorts of promos when I thought something was off, and chose to personally read the book. Once I finished reading, I couldn't help but wonder what made this slow-moving, coming-of-age tale worth millions, so I had someone covertly investigate the author I discovered. That before Mia and I split up, Jake was her first love. I even found that MIA urged him to start writing books. She assured him that she would promote him and bring him recognition, regardless of what he produced, therefore negating any negative outcome. The book was as lengthy as Jake penned about their teenage love Mia would buy, but why was Mia's fiancé writing? For a relationship spanning fewer than 2 years, partner for 10 years. She fiercely pushed her first love and spent money on rights. What then is that define the value of my past 10 years of life since I have spent so long working in the entertainment industry? Feeling both success and failure, but never once asked Mia for assistance. The fiancée I loved so much was draining herself, trying all out to make another man famous. For the first time in our 10 years together, I experienced a profound sense of humor. I got rather enraged at Mia, thinking she would felt bad, but Mia Sneed said, "Daniel, you're quite unappreciative. Fool you, everyone in the business knows. You are too arrogant to ask for help. You're my boyfriend, therefore alone made others hesitate before replacing you. You believe you haven't been replaced in the fast-paced entertainment scene by chance. My firm united half of the resources in this sector are controlled by culture. Hence, you should be grateful as your fiancé keeps you rather normal. Relevant, otherwise without me, you would be a washed-up performer, stamped by everyone seeing Mia's sneer and condescending tone. I knew, after our argument, I never really understood her. Ignored our wedding date, she initiated a cold war with me, even restricting my access to industry resources back when I was at my peak. I signed with M under United Culture if she wished. Not much I could do to halt my task. I was essentially blacklisted, but fortunately during that 6-month block my contract with United Culture expired. Maybe Mia forgot or didn't care either way. She never made a renewal offer during those many months. Doubting myself tormented myself, and at last understood not everyone's meant to be and not all relationships bloom. Stay to the end, my contract ending indicated it was time to call things off with Mia as well. I was ready to go. Sarah, the person who first got me in the business, came to see me off. We would rise together, and she would become a well-known manager who could have launched her own business, stayed with the same one out of allegiance, and Mia endured the same repression as me. In a way, she destroyed her career because of me after she slashed her resources. Was one person I owed the most. I moved all of my savings to. She wanted to make it up, but Sarah simply gave my shoulder a pat on the road you picked. You rejected down 2 contract renewals that the corporation presented. Maybe the universe smiled. You owned it. Is testing you, Daniel. I have decided to launch my own agency using the funds you provided, and view them as an investment I hope will be profitable. What happened next will shock you. Watch till the end and subscribe for more. I grinned and agreed. You come back will be the cornerstone of my business. Sarah yelled out to me by the way your wedding ring was here, just as I was going to pass security. I got it, throw. It was not significant the ring Mia's wedding planners had selected. Had no emotional value. I let go of this 10-year relationship so everything symbolic of it became meaningless to Sarah. Safe travels. I'll be. As the jet touched down in another nation, I snapped my old SIM card in half, keeping from now on simply Sarah's contact information, a fresh start I enrolled in. During the 5 years, I signed to Mia's firm United Culture. I attended a famous drama school in the United States and moved from being fading into obscurity. Mia's top actor was preoccupied with the steady expansion of her company. She didn't care about the screenplay, recruiting fresh talent and exploiting me to act in scripts that would help them grow to renowned quality as long as they could film and be approved. This led me to star in several badly reviewed plays with low reviews. Some detractors even disseminated online that I had gambling debts, which is why I adopted these negative. When excellent scripts or big projects knocked on my door, Mia would step in to advise me to pass the chance to meet recent arrivals. She would say, Dan, already well known, taking on. This would merely be the cherry on top. It won't define your job, but rather so and so actually requires. Opportunity the company presents. Should they be successful, it benefits you as well. She turned her back on me when my glory had faded and I behaved as though I owed all. My success to her without her. I wouldn't have any acknowledgement left during the period I was banned. I noticed my name often showing up on lists of the worst performers produced in by Neens. I had to confess over years that my love of performing had waned. The poor scripts Mia sent me had not only sapped my career, but also caused me to lose memory of why I initially started the business. I wanted to leave a legacy, but not want to star in a series of horrible tragedies. Enduring impact on cinema leaving Mia also meant giving up my 10-year job. Beginning from nothing, I came upon Jenna, a junior student from overseas Chinese background. She was a rising star, and the directing school run by world-class director Sam's films had earned several domestic and international awards. Director Sam had left film at 45, focusing on photography. But even though more than 10 years had gone since his last award-winning feature, Jenna, his only daughter, naturally drew notice the moment she enrolled. I happened to meet her by chance. After all, Sam's films are regarded as a major contribution to film history globally. It made logical that some of his hour drama classes would require classic works as mandated, and we began discussing after wrangling over a usually seated in the rear corner of the classroom. I was an older foreign student, and thus often sat in the first row, either following a few times of searching for her preferred seat taken by me. She had no choice except to sit next to me. She became clever and began arriving earlier than I did when I settled into my seat. Stolen, I started arriving earlier too after a few rounds of this. At last, she became enraged and cursed Chinese yes faster than Asteris. "Kay, what's your deal?" Hearing the familiar phrase, I pricked. "This seat isn't yours," up and answered. "The seat is not mine." But I arrived fair and square and rolled. Her eyes indicated okay, whatever. Nevertheless, the next time she arrived even earlier, we got to know each other from this back-and-forth struggle over the golden throne once we were more familiar. I asked her why. Often, talking about her father's movies, she never sat up front. Her whole body froze at that. She remained quiet for some time. It wasn't until the class finished that she looked at Sam's name on the screen. She whispered, "Could always be a mountain. I will never be able to ascend later." Discovered the whole narrative, Sam stopped leading in his heyday, passing the baton. Jenna, his daughter, grew raised under his values. But when she formally entered, having realized how difficult it would be to surpass her father's accomplishments at 26, she hadn't made any. Real Mark was praised as a genius filmmaker over her father's 23 debut feature, as he had dominated the awards circuit. When the strain became intolerable for her, she even started showing indications of sadness, witnessing Jenna suffer. Could not help but relate to my personal circumstances. I came from a famous acting academy, and debuted in big third-year actor productions were under the direction of a well-known director. As my career peaked, I won my first award and received several offers for jobs and sponsorships. I was making money in both fame and fortune, and emerging star noted for performing ability. However, once I joined with Emma's company and broke up my studio, I started to resemble a light, slowly burning away all my passion, since I had already stood at the pinnacle falling. Felt much more cruel and unfair. What MIA missed was that I also had been on antidepressants for a protracted period throughout those 6 months when she banned me and handed me the silent treatment. I even self-harmed and tried suicide. But ultimately, I pulled myself from that dark place and chose to start a fresh life somewhere else, giving up everything from my past. Maybe Jenna got some ideas from my narrative. She chose to pause her education for a year, and I didn't remain inactive. That year, I experimented with several temporary jobs, working as a waitress in a pub, washed McDonald's cashier. Ever since I graduated from university, dishes at restaurants and even manual labor at building sites. In actuality, I worked in the entertainment business and lacked any actual knowledge or sympathy for the life of common people. Reflecting back, this was the first year I really observed the complexity of society. The first year I observed how a common person battles to overtime. I developed fresh understanding on performing when Jenna came back. 2, she returned eager with fresh ideas for a short film and invited me to be the lead actor. Of course, I consented without thinking twice. Jenna sent the movie to numerous short film events, and it obtained amazing accomplishments and at last established herself in the movie world, overcoming the extreme strain. She had been under the success of the short film, helped reduce some of that pressure. It also brought a wave of new inspired and creative. Jenna started getting ready for her first feature film even. Whenever Jenna invited, she developed the script herself, a surreal suspense drama once more. I portrayed a transgender person in her film, hence I would be the lead actor in this one. Schizophrenia clearly presented a great difficulty for me. We filmed the film intermittently over 3 years. Both. While many of us were under great pressure, the movie was well worth the time and effort we invested in when it was at last unveiled it, and got great appreciation both inside and outside of the business. At 30, Jenna really got well known and accomplished what her father had, a breakthrough movie that won many awards. My name also came back up as a late flowering genius in the media. Coupled with her film showing once more before the public that year, I turned 35. Jenna's film was also invited to take part in a local film festival. After 5 years away, as the male lead in her movie, I also got an invitation. From my native country, I at last made the decision to go unlike when I left invisible and overlooked when Jenna and I arrived. The journalists and supporters outside the airport exit welcomed us warmly. Filled to overflowing, we were inundated with innumerable questions until one reporter abruptly asked, "Mr. 5 years, 5 years. You left the nation years ago, and your wedding was called off. Now that you're coming back with a new movie, do you intend to reunite with Miss Lou from United Culture?" Hearing Mia's name, I was slightly surprised after all 5 years had gone by, save for Sarah. I had severed all links to everyone from when I first got to the U.S. My previous Sarah had stated that Mia was seeking for me, but I told her I didn't want to know anything about Mia anymore. So naturally, I blurted out what she was doing now instantly. Hasn't married Jake yet, given how much she has publicly advocated, her first love must have been quite strong. Attached to him, but from the reporter's tone she still wasn't wedded. Maybe my sincere perplexity caught the reporter's attention. All the inquiries pointed at me. "Mr. Hear, you claim not to have spoken with Miss Lou at all, yet reports indicate your connection has Miss Lou had totally fallen apart." I laughed as I remembered I made it clear 5 years ago. But let me emphasize, I wish Mia and her first love. I have no more relationship with her if there is still any uncertainty. All the best now. Let's stop the personal questions here so that everyone might concentrate. More on our movie, as we at last got away from the media and into the car Jenna had booked. Jenna dropped her mask. He grinned at me. "You once told me you were a popular actress back home. I didn't believe you at the time, but now I see. I guessed you laughed. It's not exactly a fantastic reputation, being I'm not proud of remembered for a scandalous love triangle. I was rather concerned this might influence the film's release back home, but shockingly Jenna in her normal carefree. But what's the big deal? This could even give some buzz to my movie. It's a niche endeavor after all. I made it with the goal of winning awards. If more people purchased tickets, I would be all for it." After mentioning that, she leaned. "Let me ask you something. Do you truly have no emotions left for your 10-year ex-partner?" In closer and whispered in my ear years I had once told Jenna about my history with Mia. At that moment she asked me, "What would you have done, looking back now, if Mia hadn't wanted to break off with you?" Her inquiry feels almost prescient. It seems Mia didn't wind up with Jake after all. I knew what Jenna was really questioning, whether there was any possibility M and I may get back together. I thought about it. I told her, I just find it all quite irritating. I had thought after I left Mia and Jake would live blissfully ever after, but oddly, she stayed over all these years. I felt that Mia would definitely cause problems for me during my trip back home. Enough of my suspicions were correct, because I joined with Sarah's new agency. The 5 years had gone when I visited the company to see Sarah the next day. Had become rather overweight and was not young anymore. As soon as she started to gain weight, all traces of her young charm disappeared, and her age seemed to catch up with her all at once. She looked like she could be 40, and I would have had felt it when we saw one other. Mia was the first to react enthusiastically, calling my name, but very shortly, for some reason, her countenance changed as she rushed away. When I got to Sarah's office, I could still see a residue of the whole interaction, somewhat confusing. Her face showed residual resentment. I hunched over it, connected it to Mia, and asked Sarah couldn't control herself, and began berating me as soon as she learned I had run across Mia. I have never seen someone thus ashamed in my life. From her comments, I put together Mia's life over the past. 5 years later, Mia looked for me for 2 days, but heard from Sarah instead. She became enraged when I left overseas and instructed Sarah to pass on a note should I continue this act. Would replace me with Jake at the wedding in 2 days, stating I would regret it by then. I had already notified Sarah not to tell me anything about Mia anymore. Sarah understood how determined I was, hence she did not pass on Mia's message. She carried on as asked. Did she truly replace me at the wedding? She could even pull that off at the end, give out a sarcastic chuckle instead of you. She said you two had intended to have the wedding in Santa when media asked her about it. Rini, and that she traveled to survey the area she barely managed to cover with Jake. She thought that the united culture of Mia's company suffered reaction due to her attempts to encourage Jake were also hampered by my remarks suggesting, suddenly dug out by the gossip-hungry, the public something to laugh at a young novel with a small target readership was suddenly masses other from Jake's fervent supporters, most people who read asterisk events like against asterisk. I thought it was a lousy, uninspired young romance. Most people couldn't comprehend how far it had been pushed, even ending up as the most overrated young person voted. Books on several platforms, as they say, to wear the crown you acquired, bear Mia's weight had created such a massive platform for Jake, but his talent fell short of public expectations. Hence, the book was ripped apart as more individuals read it. Critics saw that many of Jake's words were shockingly identical to those in a lesser recognized web fiction, thus before Jake could clear his name from the copying charges he was charged with. The cheating scandal. Online literary plagiarism is always difficult to define. The original author discovered about the plagiarism armed with proof presented. He sued Jake, and the matter went on for years. Without resolution were mostly due to asterisk events, unlike others. Originally, with Jake's popularity and awards, asterisk had no genuine literary worth. Had gotten were mostly produced by the original author's demand for pay, but Jake, because he thought the work he copied was not worth much, and that, absent Mia, even if he had plagiarized the book, wouldn't have attracted as much attention, this twisted reasoning resulted in years of entanglement. Between him and the original author, whose case regularly shows on social media, Yannens requested Mia and Jake apologized to the original author for the plagiarism scandal. Nonetheless, Mia made a decision that nobody else could have understood. To downplay the criticism and instead put up a well-known team aggressively declaring intentions to change asterisk scenes, like against asterisk in a movie, created considerably more disturbance. Online, Mia most likely wanted to follow the notorious path. She angrily insisted on the criticism and completed production in 6 months, hurrying to distribute it as fast as promised. So hurriedly, the film put together lacked any authenticity, even though Mia produced the most beautiful young male leads and the most beautiful rising actresses from her organization to share this young story. The audience still attacked her for giving them trash, calling her lazy. Not only do I have to watch the nasty children of capitalists, but they also make me see her cringeworthy first love anyone views. This copied garbage is a complete moron's remarks like, "These were all around." This went totally against Mia's anticipation that the more furiously the audience attacked, the more people would later view this high school romance movie. Supposedly, with a $200 million investment, less than $10 million at the box office she missed. Though everything in the past wouldn't have mattered much, Mia had signed a performance deal with her investors. The dismal failure of asterisk events like Against Asterisk meant she couldn't meet her. The performance targets of the contract split United Media's shares among the CEO, and main shareholder Mia was totally removed by the investors. All right, what then has bearing on this? Her coming to find you. Sarah rolled her eyes. Isn't it since your movie become prominent, Mia visited pretending you were still one of United's musicians, only after she approved many endorsement deals. She exclaimed right away that your contract had long expired when she discovered it. Already signed with my Hing Media, Mia arrived to battle beside me. Sarah massaged her temples, but Mia couldn't find any proof you were still under her. Corporation. Hence, even if the debate turned public opinion in my favor, that's when I discovered this sequence of events Sarah cautioned me about, but otherwise things has been simple for her lately. She will most likely come hunting for you. Keep aware Sarah's prediction turned out to be exact, as Mia hadn't left, but was waiting as I left the corporate building. Security guards had tried numerous times at the door to make her leave, but she wouldn't move when she spotted me. Her eyes gleamed. Dan, I have to talk to you. I lifted my hand to stop the guards. She got up straight, straightening her messy clothes. It has been some time. Might we talk? Mia, a peaceful tea house Mia, individually poured tea and presented it to me even. She had wanted to converse, but we sat in quiet for a long time. I looked at the tea in front of me, whether you have any idea. Something to say? Mia shot me a sour glance. I'm sorry that was all she offered. Said after all this time, this apology provided a dark counterpoint to her haughtiness 5 years ago when I realized I wasn't moving. Mia's face got scarlet, then gently went. Her voice grew weaker. I avoided meeting Jake. All of it was a misinterpretation. I never meant to break off with you. A mocking smirk pulled at the edge of my lips as Mia swiftly wiped away a tear that dropped from her voice, which got fainter. I looked at her now, fuller form gone. There is absolutely no prospect for us anymore. The confidence Mia once possessed stayed quiet, seeming to comprehend her appearance was not what it used to be. My tremendous sense of pride broke as she covered her face. I cannot help but to relax after lingering late, drinking one round after another. The tension it causes is difficult to maintain my figure the same. I wailed Jake merely used me to raise his fame with my contacts and platform when I grew weight. He began to resent me, but he never gave that any thought. He was merely a lazy, spoiled bum without me, so you left you did. Get meet with Jake. But you two missed the last hearing of Mia stiffened now. You're wondering whether we can still be together. Are you really so naive? I got up, the only reason I even sat down with you for this half hour out of respect for the 10 years we have shared. But if this is all wanted to say, it's a total waste of time. Mia was shocked. Then what do you think? Obviously, I want to hear from you. I want to discuss the shares I still have in United Media. Mia's face collapsed, saw her expression. I couldn't help but chuckle. You actually thought I would come here to reignite our former passion. This is the only thing we have left to talk about is my shares, back from when my artist contract expired. Mia signed me with a guarantee of 20% of United Media's shares during the height of my career. Once I signed, she behaved as though she had forgotten all about it. We signed a supplemental agreement naturally. I stayed silent since I never got any dividends for years when I didn't want to fight over money. Now it's looking at her now. It was obvious she meant to weasel out of this. Time to retrieve what is properly mine. I told. Mia is getting ready to make up for all the unpaid dividends. I would sue United Media, as Sarah had advised. Hadn't been performing lately, but less than half an hour after I left the house, I expected it to be this horrible. Sarah Mia's mother called me, stating she wanted to have a word with me even though calling out her mother, who always hated me and considered me to be freelancing off her daughter, dialed the number Sarah provided me, eager to hear what this woman who had looked down on me for years had to say today. First, Mia's mother said, using a fake phone number, surprised me. I agree to you and Mia. You won't have to pay any bride price when you get married. Let's not discuss the shares. You will be family from either side. No necessity for two families to talk about business. I froze when I didn't respond. She became impatient. What you still want the shares, let me know. Many men lined up years ago to wed my daughter, but she spent her young people waiting for you are lucky. She is not asking for anything for it. You are successful right now, but you do not want entangled in a scandal over her desertion. After all these years, Mia's mother hadn't changed very much. I hung the phone right away and requested Sarah to assist. I sued Mia for the unpaid dividends specified in our agreement, which came to more than 50 million. With this lawsuit, all the old drama between Mia and me. Furious, Mia resurfaced and sent an edited audio clip of She presented herself as a tea room chat, misrepresenting the facts, and accused me of deserting her. She devastated woman who had waited 5 years for her boyfriend, but the internet doesn't remember before I ever had chance to react. Sharply focused, Nens gathered previous news about her planning a promotional stunt with Jake, showcasing. Even pictures of Mia staying in the same luxurious Hotel H suite revealed their trip to Santorini flopped. Mia then uploaded our contract to United Media, claiming to have broken it by signing with another company. She threatened to sue me for contract violation. The claimed sum in damage just so occurred to be the same as the unpaid dividends, over 50 million. When Sarah responded with a wealth of chat logs and recordings, and it was obvious that my contract had expired, and she had often sought to negotiate a renewal with United's higher authorities, only to be dismissed this under fire management of United Media in the trending searches. The actual reason they failed to renew my contract back then. They were observing Mia's reaction now. Mia's gamble had backfired, and the internal team showed little desire for covering for her. She lost control. Hence, an insider stepped up to clarify that the delay in renewing my contract resulted from a big fight I had with Mia about for Jake. That embarrassed her. She had chose to impart knowledge to me by deliberately suspending my contract with past revelation Mia. Angry netizens tore apart deceitful behavior. Even Jake, who had long since Jake left Mia, she was hauled into the turmoil and rode the notoriety she generated for him, richly benefiting from the website she made for him as a top novelist, even though he was beset with plagiarism scandals. Nevertheless, he managed to generate large royalties. After separating with Mia, writing was only passably good. Books hardly had any influence, and once more Jake found himself unable to avoid copying someone else's work this time. However, he copied the incorrect person, an early piece by a well-known writer, who gathered the proof and sued Jake, therefore winning the case. Reputation was completely damaged. The website canceled his contract and insisted him repay his. Now, Jake was totally buried in debt, dragged down by. Not only did Mia, he confessed to the allegations about him and her, but he snapped and started a tirade on social media. Pre-wedding fling on Santorini. But he also cursed. Mia Daniel threw up everything for her. But she's only a shameless woman. She hurled herself at me the first time she saw me. I didn't even want to deal with her. But she said she'd made it and could bring me to the top. Come on. We're all guys here, tell me. When something like that is presented to you on a silver platter, who would refuse? Just made the same error any guy would. Mia, the true culprit. Jake's outburst only made the matter messy. I hadn't spoken publicly, but my legal. Soon after the team worked behind the scenes, the court decided Mia had to pay me over 50 million yuan in dividends and interest. Following the court's decision against Mia, she sought to get in touch multiple times, wanting to remember and apply past emotions to ease things, but I refused to see her. Who would believe that a former girlfriend who hadn't sought to get in touch in 5 years still experienced any real emotions? She merely saw my return and wanted me back under her control for her own benefit. I'm not sure what MIA had been up to all these years to pay. Once the money arrived in my account, the 50 million win, she had to sell her house, and some of her shares immediately sold Mia's main investor, United Media's shares, by the time she learned it. She had totally lost her ultimate influence on United Media in too late. The end, United Media was renamed Fading Media and combined under the main shareholders. Conglomerate Mia had spent more than 10 years creating her empire only to find herself a simple worker for someone else. Jake didn't fare any better his dishonesty. Public tirades caught the interest of boor internet users, and some even searched personal information about his present. After all, the woman he had just begun intending to marry broke up with her. Her boyfriend persisted relentlessly. Harassment. 5 years ago, he destroyed my opportunity to be married immediately before the wedding. 5 years later, he lost his own. After that, I stopped looking at either of them. Jenna stayed in the country for a bit before choosing to go back to the U.S. for more research on the day I saw Jenna off. Jenna stated to me, next time could be mine. Again, leading man, I nodded. Naturally, Jenna grinned. Be the leading man in my life. I froze, but by then she had already turned and passed the security gate without looking back. It seemed as though those words were a fantasy. Of course, my imagination naturally didn't start until I was over 40. I finally acquired the permission of Jenna's parents, but that is a tale for another era. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping tales.